Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Peter here, and it's Monday, the 29th of April 2019. How are you doing? Today we started off with some email marketing for a customer, and it was pretty wonderful to work on it. It's a really high volume, high load of work for this customer. They have 22 different emails that they need to send out currently, and Anthony does the bulk of the work, and he does it really well. It entails prepping up 22 completely different emails that have to conform to a level of conformity. They are inconsistent, but they need to be consistently inconsistent, and it was great to work on the day. Now, today we worked through some structure in the process of how we do it, and it was wonderful to see how that went. Over the course of this week, there will be 22 emails sent out to. The list isn't that big. It's about 11,000 overall. But the real skill in developing these emails is making sure that you get everything right and that you don't do something crazy like send one email to the entire list. It's meant to be 22 different lists. And that is the big, deep intake of breath moment whenever you press that send button. There's a whole bunch of checks that we got to do before we press that button to make sure that we don't make any mistakes. I mean, email marketing is old school in one way, but it still brings that level of fear in case you send out the email to the wrong person. So the process and the discipline and being able to sequence the emails correctly and making sure that they're being checked and the proofing is all very important to make sure that we're never in the position where we make a mistake on sending out the wrong email to the wrong people. And look, this is an honest podcast. We need to be honest. And what I have said to anybody that I've worked with in this, the reason why we know how important it is to not send an email to the wrong list is because I've done it before. Early in my advertising career, I've pressed that button and it's gone out with spelling mistakes in it, or it's gone out to the wrong list, and it's horrible. It's a feeling that you feel sick to your stomach that you've let everybody down and everything's gone wrong. So in order to avoid that, I think you tend to, whenever you do it, it's really interesting, because if you haven't done it, if you haven't done that, you don't know that feeling of wanting the ground to just swallow you up. You don't know that feeling of just that gut punch whenever you've sent it and you realise you've sent it and you realise there's nothing you can do to get it back. So whenever someone's working with me and they haven't done that before, or they just haven't told me that they've done it before, which would be pretty understandable, it can be I'm a little bit wary of it, because it means that kind of thing might be around the corner, and ironically you might need to go through that kind of pain to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future, or that you do everything that you can not to have that happen in the future. Something that's really relevant to the email marketing journey is proofing and checking all outbound content. We want to make sure that all of our work is of the highest quality. Now, I think you can go too far at times with this. I think it's better to get stuff out there rather than checking it to the nth degree. There's obviously a certain standard that you need to keep, but I think I've fallen foul of it. Even doing this podcast and getting it out there is a very important part of our process now, part of my process now. But we look over things, and sometimes we never actually send them out because we're not sure if it's good enough. I think, interestingly, like emails, making a mistake on emails can make you stronger in the future, because you make sure and check things over and over and over again to make sure that it's right. So I almost think that there might be a weird paradox of having to just do it, get it wrong, and then reverse back and get it right. And I think that's very important. I think that's part of the overall journey, and something that we're gonna try to break through a little bit harder on our outbound content that we're doing in the future. Today was also a really normal day in terms of checking on all of our adverts. This morning, on a Monday morning at PDG, we go through a weekly meeting where we check through all of our clients, and in order to make sure that everybody is happy, we go over all of their adverts, see what's performing, see what isn't performing. This is actually a daily thing, not just during the week. It's at the weekends as well, because businesses don't shut down over the internet doesn't have open and closing hours. It's a 24-hour online marketplace, and it was good today to go through each of the adverts because things are going really well for our customers, and as they should be. But that little check-in every day on them, of an hour, of half an hour, of however long it takes to make sure. I mean, some days it differs. So some days it'll be like 15 minutes because things will be going well, but you need to check and leave it for another 24 hours to make sure it's doing what you expect it to do consistently. Other times there'll be something wrong, and you'll need to review for 2-3 hours to find out what's going wrong with it. So that's the up and down of checking on those adverts every day. But it's a really important part of the process as well, and part of our journey of going in and making sure what we're doing is the right thing to do. Thought it'd be a good idea today. I mean, over the weekend and this morning, I was listening to my favorite podcast in the world, the podcast that got me into podcasts, I suppose, and it's called the Gary Vaynerchuk podcast, either the Daily V or the Gary V Show. If you look those up on the internet, you'll find them. If you have any history with PDG advertising, if you've ever had a conversation with me about advertising, you've probably come across me talking about Gary Vaynerchuk, and he is, I would say, responsible for my ability to deliver on customer solutions on the internet. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he gets that much credit, but he's certainly the person who seemed like he gave us all permission to go out and do it and go out and do what you want to do. So that's a favourite podcast of mine. It's another favourite podcast of mine, probably a little bit politically incorrect. It's called Bill Burr's Monday Morning Podcast. He does a podcast on Monday morning and on Thursday morning as well. Or is it the Thursday after? Yeah, the Thursday afternoon, just before Friday, Monday morning podcast. And it's very funny. So there's a little bit of light relief, but it's actually good as well. Bill Burr's a businessman. You can see how podcasting works. You can actually see how advertising on podcasting is going to work. That's going to be a big thing in the future. And yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of the podcasts that I've really enjoyed over the last few years, I suppose. What's even better about these podcasts is it's like a radio show, but one that isn't on at any given time, and you can listen to it anytime you want. But also, there's, like in Bill Burr's case, he's been doing podcasts since maybe, I don't know, I think it's like 2010 or something. So there's 9 years nearly worth of podcasts there, two a week, every single week, and he's really consistent. Funny, we were talking to a customer about how, podcasters, like, there's another one, Joe Rogan's a great podcaster as well. But those guys, what makes them successful is their level of consistency. I'd love to try to match that. This is podcast number 8, and it feels like we're just starting over again. It doesn't feel like we're 8 through. It feels right this time, and it feels like it's the right time for us to share our journey. I suppose at the start of this podcast, I've just done an email out to our audience, and our audience is relatively small, but I'm sharing the link to. I've just managed to get this podcast uploaded onto YouTube. It's available everywhere. Actually, it's available on Apple Music, on Spotify, on SoundCloud, on Anchor FM, and now I'm going to be uploading them to YouTube. And the reason why I'm uploading them to YouTube is because it's where I discovered Bill Burr, it's where I discovered Joe Rogan, it's where I discovered Gary Vaynerchuk. So my thinking is that maybe you guys listening have discovered me on YouTube or been directed to us by YouTube. That's my thinking with that. But the point was that I have added in the link to the very first episode of this, and that was 6-7 episodes ago. So I've listened to myself, and the quality is not great. I'm kind of shouting a little bit now until we get some decent equipment in here for podcasting and we find out even what that equipment should be. I'm going to try to speak a little bit louder because I realize that the podcast is very low. But look, I'm not that bothered about that. This is another thing about quality. I'm not that bothered about it being a little bit low. Like, you can turn your speaker up, or you can turn your car radio up if you're listening to this in the car. But it's more important that I get it out there and be consistent. And even if the actual quality of the content isn't that good right now, it'll get better. And I can see and feel the difference between podcast episode 1 and podcast episode 7 here. And I'm smiling, I'm ear to ear grinning with excitement about the next podcast that we're going to do. And it's funny too, because whenever I have listened to Bill Burr's first ever podcast, it is not the Bill Burr that we know now. It's not the confident, funny. It's a guy that's getting to grips with technology. It's a guy that's trying to figure it out, and I don't think it's there at all in his first one. And he has turned into literally one of the best podcasters out there, a superstar, and someone who it's just so consistent and such good quality now, and it all has to start from somewhere. It's all it's not about, don't think it's about where you are. I think it's about where you're going. I don't think that's cliched. I think that's a great example of, the place where we are now with this podcast. To let's revisit, where we are in a year's time and see if we've got any visitors, see if we've got any likes, see if we've got any people that enjoy it, and hopefully we can have some impact. It was really cool today. We got asked by a customer to expand our services for them, but first they wanted to see some of our portfolio items for some of the extended services that we had. So spent a bit of today putting together a brief portfolio of our items. Never really been able to do that brilliantly, taking what we've done and keep it in a portfolio. It's something we're going to have to do more consistently, because I know that we're working hard every day, but we're not taking the items that we've created and the pictures and the graphics and the posts, and we're not putting them into our scrapbook so that we can show people. I don't even know how that scrapbook looks anymore. I don't know what the best way to form up that. Is it a web page? Is it a blog post? Is it smart to hand over our customer data? You'll notice on this podcast that I'm kind of shielding our customers from it right now. We've got a lot of our customers are contracted up with us, so we can share their names, but I don't know if we want to. I mean, I want to be open and transparent, but I don't necessarily want to open the floodgates for people to know who our customers are. Maybe that'll become apparent, and maybe the right thing to do, and that will become obvious in the future. But right now, I don't know the answer to it, and it still is a little bit of a grey area around how that portfolio should work. But we'll figure it out. We were able to send through a makeshift email with some portfolio items in there, and hopefully that is enough to secure that business with the customer. It's one that we're anticipating and keen to work out. Just wanted to give you guys a little tip, I suppose. Maybe you should get some value for listening to this podcast for 7 episodes if you've been here from then. What I wanted to share was Jack's Flight Club. If you were to Google Jack's Flight Club, you can get very cheap flights all across the world. I am going to be in Texas in Austin, Texas in November. And had I been a member of Jack's Flight Club when I booked it back in January, I think, I would have saved maybe £500 on the journey. And not only that, all of our families are going over. All of my family, my mum and dad, and all my cousins are going over to Texas, and they all could have saved as well. And it's quite significant because the prices of places in Texas are quite expensive, so that would have lowered the overall cost for everyone. So Jack's Flight Club, something that's really useful and that we are subscribed up to at PDG Advertising. Also a really great example, if we're talking about advertising examples, it's a really great example of an email that adds value. I have no idea how their business model works. I'm going to have to find that out someday, but a really strong email, and I bet its open rates are through the roof. Whereas a lot of email open rates are not really very high at the moment, but I would suggest that these are probably quite high. Yeah, we saw something else as well today. Bark.com. I set up a profile on it. Looks like a marketplace for digital advertising and people and business owners to see if they can connect up. And I let you guys know how that goes. Always looking for ways to promote growth. And I suppose, on our email marketing, one of the things that we've said, by the way, if you want to get our emails, you can sign up on pdgadvertising.com. I'd love to share our journey with you. We created a pop-up on there. It's not on the website. It's not the prettiest of things, but it explains what we're trying to do and explains what we're doing on this podcast, I hope. We're going through the process and the journey of building the best digital advertising agency that we can build. And along the way, we learn things. And along the way, we're going to share those things that we learn so that we can all move up together. And that's a really important part of what we're doing. But on the email marketing, we share what our goals are, and one of them is customer happiness. So we want to make sure our customers are happy. The second one is customer growth. We want more customers. So any way of getting in front of the right people and getting in front of new customers is something that we're going to do. And then PDG brand awareness. This podcast should give us some awareness, and posting on Facebook and actually interacting with our email audience, and Instagram and Twitter. I think those are the main platforms that we're on. Oh, and YouTube for this podcast as well. So, goodness, Anchor, Apple Music, Spotify, SoundCloud. Yeah, that's a good Monday. I think we've pushed our message out quite far. I don't even know what our message really is at the moment. We just know what we're trying to do, and we're going to have to work that out in time. But yeah, bark.com is something that I'll let you know how it goes and if it's been valuable for us. Another thing just today has been really valuable, and we're starting to decorate this office now, having it painted. So we're getting a lady in to quote us for a sign tomorrow, so we'll see what she says. My chair is squeaking, so and it ruins this podcast. So we need to get new chairs, and I've worked out a kind of seating plan design, and we're going to have a table and place for the printing area and a kind of cabinet for coffee and teas and somewhere nice to make that. I think it's about making this as nice an environment as possible to work in. We talk a lot about, our customers and that, but the team is really, really important. So that's what I'm trying to do with that. And with that comes a love of whiteboards. And I've just written down there whiteboards. Something that I've always really enjoyed, having a whiteboard, just to put ideas up and keep them really front of mind. So I think in our future, there's going to be a very large whiteboard somewhere around one of these walls. If you go over to Facebook and you have a look, you'll be able to see what the office looks like right now. As of the 29th of the 4th, 2019, it's really just a white space, a blank canvas, and something that we'll be working on in the future going forward. So that's about it from me today. I really appreciate you listening. I'm wishing you a really nice evening ahead or day ahead or whatever time you watch this or listen to it. So we'll be back tomorrow, and I look forward to getting this episode uploaded. And just have a really great day ahead.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.